How's it going, everyone? In this video, we'll be fixing another viewer's broken system. This system actually was working at one point. It is not any longer. Based on what he told me about the symptoms it's showing, this one's going to be a real treat to try to figure out. I'm on a time crunch here. He drove all the way from Palm Beach, which, if you don't know, that's several hours from Orlando, about 3 hours or so, maybe 4 hours, depending on traffic up the turnpike. And he's going to return back home at around 3 p.m. today. So it's 11 a.m. right now. I have 4 hours to fix the system. I apologize if the video is going to be a bit all over the place, a bit quick, but I don't want him to have to drive back here another day just to pick his system up, even though he said he wouldn't and doesn't have a problem with it. One quick note about this playlist. This will turn into a full-fledged series. We have enough entries from viewers who have issues with their systems in the Orlando, Florida area that I think we can turn this into at least a full season's worth of fixing systems, broken consoles, broken components, and we're gonna call this series Fix or Flop. So if you ever see a video uploaded on the channel and the title has Fix or Flop in it, this is what you're gonna get. So without further ado, I'm gonna get this thing plugged in, we're gonna turn it on and see what on earth is wrong with it. Stay with me. Be sure to check out Team Group T-Force Delta RGB modules for your next PC. With capacities up to 32 gigs per DIMM and frequencies up to 3600 megahertz, they'll be sure to complement any build budget. But not only that, their integrated LEDs can be controlled by various RGB software suites, so there's no need for extra clutter. Click the sponsor link below for more details. Now, this system is a bit dirty. Yeah, there's some dust accumulated in here. I wouldn't say this is worthy of a proper deep cleaning though, and given my time constraints, I'm not really gonna be too worried about trying to clean this up as best I can. I will take my electric duster to it though, get rid of some of the surface dust, make it a bit cleaner for him when he gets his system back. If all else fails and I can't fix this, it ends up being a flop, at least I'll have a cleaner system at the end of it. Now, as usual, first thing we're gonna do, plug in the system. We're gonna connect the monitor, even though he told me that we don't get picture, we don't get a post. I'm still gonna connect it anyway, just in case. No, but we've got the system plugged in, and we're just gonna see what kind of symptoms we notice right off the bat. So power is on. We've got fans spinning. It's really weird. I feel like we're getting issues with power delivery, PCI power, or actually supplemental power to the card. PCI power is probably fine. We're getting a white DRAM light. I have never seen this before. So this is the part here that concerns me the most. The DRAM light, I mean, that could be anything. It could just be reseating the modules. We'll try a few different things, try different slots as well. But this is what I'm very concerned about. Either this card isn't getting proper power because we've only got one of these connector lights blinking. I believe both should be on if they're both receiving power. A lot of other cards I've worked with are like that. But the blinking as well, something's up here. I'm gonna check connections at the rear first. We'll tackle the DRAM issue later, but I think this is our biggest concern. So let's get this right side panel off. I'm gonna look for connections into the power supply because the connections into the card looked fine. Usually this stuff is good, but you just never know. You always wanna check. These are the connections here for the card specifically. Supplemental PCI connectors, they look fine. What I might do is remove the cable extensions and just plug these directly in to the card just to rule out a cable extension issue. Most of the time these will be fine. If they're using correct gauge maybe, or if they're not split correctly, and these can cause issues. So let's run these cables from the power supply straight in. So the cable extensions are not the issue, but at least we've ruled out that possibility. So the next thing I'm gonna do, just to clear up any potential software issues in the BIOS, I'm going to clear the CMOS, which will require me to jump these two pins right here. We'll lift it back off, okay. Power on. Let's just see what happens. Nothing happened, but that's okay. At least we ruled out another possibility, same symptoms as before. Okay, I was mistaken. After double checking this LED up here, it's actually the LED indicator for a VGA issue, not DRAM. There's a bunch of stacked LEDs there and then like a stack of descriptions above that, and I kind of got them confused. So it's just pointing to VGA. No other issue here except for the card. And again, we've got that blinking white PCIe cable connector, which it shouldn't be blinking. Only one of them's blinking, so that's very concerning. Something the system really wants to post. Everything else checks out. Everything else appears to be fine. We have that blinking LED on top of this card. I'm glad Gigabyte included these. It makes it easier to troubleshoot in the long run. Either the card is not receiving power from the power supply, or the card is receiving power, but it's not delivering it properly, which would indicate just a graphics card mainboard issue. So I'm going to swap cards first. And if this card, if the new card still exhibits similar issues, then we're gonna rule it down to a power supply issue. I'll get my clamp meter and we'll see if we're
for getting power draw through these cables here. I double checked the connections on the power supply side, looks good. These obviously are okay. But the graphics card swap is the easier of the two, so we're gonna try that one first. So out with the old, take this out of here. And in with the new. This card actually looks quite similar to the one he already has in there. It's a bit thinner. This is the same GTX 1660 that we used to diagnose the previous system in this playlist. So I know this card again works. It's been tested in multiple rigs. And if we get the same kind of issue, then we'll know that it's not the graphics card. At least it probably isn't. I'm not even gonna bother screwing it in. It can just sit there. It's not hanging too hard. And we'll power it up, see if we get a post this time. Well, all right, so a few things I just noticed. The LED up top now is green instead of white, which I think indicates that the system is posted and there's no issues with this new card. That is bad news, of course, though, for this 5700 XT here. I think this card is to blame. Makes it easier to troubleshoot, but at the end of the day, and these cards are going for way more than they should in this current graphics card market, it's not gonna be good news for this viewer. Yep, I should have connected the HDMI cable to begin with, but we get a post now, so it's this card. That sucks. And now just to rule out the possibility, the very, very slight possibility that it was the supplemental 6-pin that was the issue from the power supply in his rig and not the card itself, I'm going to throw his 5700 XT into my personal rig, which works just fine, so we know everything else in here is good. If we get the same kind of symptoms, we don't get a picture on screen, and I'm sure my Dr. Debug LED would tell me something crazy, we know that it's still the card. Now, if we don't have any issues here, it's gonna be the power supply. I'd actually prefer that to be the case, but I don't think it will be. I'm gonna have to kind of cross these cables over. Different layout here. Gonna look a bit weird. I'm not even gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna screw this card into the case. There's really no point, it's gonna be removed in a few seconds. Now I'm not even gonna let this thing boot all the way into Windows. I don't want it trying to install conflicting drivers. Just wanna see if it posts. If it posts, we're in good hands.
A few moments later.
We're getting the same blinking LED on that 8-pin, no LED on the 6-pin. I wonder if Dr. Debug's gonna tell me anything. That's what I'm really curious about though, because it might tell us more specifically what's wrong. Now see, it just turns off. So I think that the system thinks that the card is working fine. At least my motherboard does. Or it would throw a code. It's neither of the DisplayPort connectors. I doubt both of those are bad. It's something else on the board. So we know it's the graphics card, right? I mean, at this point, we've seen the exact same symptoms exhibited in two totally separate, otherwise fully functioning builds. And at this point, I'm inclined to take it apart. I at least want to look at the board and see if there are any physical imperfections. Maybe we've got a blown MOSFET. Maybe the GPU's been deballed. I'm not sure if we'll be able to see if it's very slight. Maybe some other SMD has just completely blown apart. We won't know till we take it apart. At this point, I feel like we have nothing left to lose because we know it's the card. But instead of just being the bearer of bad news here, I'm gonna take it apart and see if I can narrow down specifically what's wrong, because we might be able to find a donor board and resolder those SMDs if they are in fact destroyed, overheated, blown apart, whatever. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's take it apart. Why not? So the rest of this build works. That is that I can say for certain. Go ahead and unplug all this stuff. I guess it's no different really than, you know, a PC-DC video where I'm fully dissecting a graphics card. But in this case, we're not really cleaning it. We're just trying to find any physical damage. So I've got my knockoff iFixit toolkit here. Pretty much every screw head you could think of. We're gonna go for the small Phillips. This one's really on there. There we go. Okay, got two different sets of cables to disconnect. One set there. Careful not to snag anything. And the other one here. I'm also gonna remove the back plate just because there might be something on the other side of this board that we don't see. It could be damaged. So just a few extra screws here. We do have thermal pads back here as well, so things are a bit sticky. Be careful, you do not want to bend this board. Okay, so let's look at this side first. I'm gonna zoom in a bit so you guys can see what I'm seeing. know it's not all going to be in focus. I don't see any immediate issue. I'd really hate to give this back to the owner and just be like, yeah, well, I know it's your card, but what specifically about your card is wrong, that I do not know. That's just not the news you want to hear. I mean, replacing a 5700 XT with a totally new card is going to cost way over retail for one of these. At this point, it's pretty much impossible unless you're, rolling in cash. And I'd love to whip out my soldering equipment and fix something. If I see something wrong, I think I could fix it. Even these very, very small resistors and things, but I don't see anything wrong, and that sucks. I'm just gonna see if anyone else online has had a similar issue. Let's see, 5700 XT, one blinking PCIe cable LED. Just see. I mean, if someone else has kind of narrowed it down, that might indicate where I need to be looking. A few people here are saying that it just means abnormal power supply, so there's some sort of issue with the power delivery from the power supply itself. I don't think that's the case though, because my build has a power supply that's way over wattage for what this card requires, and I was running two separate cables from the unit, a 6-pin and an 8-pin. So it's not even like they're split, although his were split, but that still shouldn't be an issue. I mean, if the power supply is designed correctly, the splitting there shouldn't be a problem, especially for a card this, it's not weak, but it's not overkill either. See, this is the other really weird thing. If I intentionally don't connect the extra 6-pin here, just leave the 8-pin connected, we're supposed to get a light here. So I actually got it backwards earlier. I put a note there in the video, but it's supposed to light up if it's not receiving power. If it is receiving power, then these lights should stay off. This light should be on, according to Gigabyte, but it's not. And we're still getting that same kind of incessant blinking left LED for over the 8-pin. It's just really strange. So now I'm curious, if I just connect the 6-pin, are we going to get the same LED flashing here? I'm just kind of playing around at this point. Also, we'll try switching the 6-pin, or what was a 6-pin, we'll switch that into the 8-pin header, and vice versa, just to see. Again, we've already kind of ruled this out, but I'm kind of confused by the status indicator here. See, it just blinks. I don't get it. There's got to be some. I mean, I checked. There's no manual. There's a quick start guide for this graphics card, but there's no manual that I could find on the website for this product. And I think that if only one LED is blinking like this, that indicates something else. I don't think it's a power issue, or it might be a power issue, but it's not the same one as what people are saying they're getting when both lights are flashing. That would indicate that there's abnormal power being supplied, probably a power supply issue. Here, though, I'm not thinking that. It might be maybe a bad BIOS flash if this person flashed a VBIOS. I don't know. Heck, even with both supplemental cables disconnected, we're still getting that single blinking LED. Starting to annoy me at this point. The only other thing I can think of, and I'm just going to do this at this point because I have nothing else to try, and I'm probably going to have to give this system back to the owner with the bad news. I don't have a replacement card for this. I don't have many graphics cards at all, actually. A lot of them I've given away, and I haven't gotten any extras from vendors because vendors don't have many of them either. But I'm just going to move this graphics card down to the second full-length slot. And I'm not even going to connect power cables. Just going to see if we get the same issue. It's the only other thing I can try here. I don't have the tools necessary to diagnose anything on a mainboard level. Yeah, I'm totally stumped on this one. All I can think of is that there's some sort of defect on the board, probably the GPU itself, that obviously I'm not going to be able to fix. This would be a classic case of RMA, and the owner of the system might still have a warranty on this card. I don't know. I don't know how old the card is or when he bought it, if he even bought it, or if he bought it secondhand off of someone else. But at least I can tell him, that the card itself is to blame. Well, I really hate to be the bearer of bad news here, especially in this current graphics card market. If I had additional cards, if I had this exact card or one even close to it, that was extra that I didn't need for recursive testing or potential builds in the future, and I only have a few available in the closet. Most of those in there are boxes at this point. I've given so many of them away. I would totally swap cards with him. But unfortunately, the current state of things, it also affects us as reviewers, as builders, and I'm going to have to just tell him, to try his luck with the RMA process if he still has a warranty, to claim that and try to return it to Gigabyte, get them to send a replacement or get them to fix the card if they can figure out what is wrong with it. He did tell me on Twitter when he first inquired about getting this thing fixed, having me look at it. He said, I was using my computer normally and it just completely shut off and wouldn't reboot. I installed a new PSU and when I powered it on, the fans and lights were on, but I didn't get video. That sounds an awful lot like that old power supply killed his card. Potentially a surge down just the PCIe pinouts on the brick side killed the card. That's all I can think of. Why else would your system die with the old unit, but then you replace it with a new working unit? Everything else is good. Everything else turns on. You get your lights, your fan spinning, but you don't get a post because the card doesn't work any longer. I think his card was bricked by that old power supply. And when the power supply died, it took the graphics card with it. That's why power supplies are so important, guys. When you're shopping for a unit, do not buy the cheapest, even if it has enough wattage for your system or more than enough wattage. If it's not at least 80 plus certified, if it's not from a reputable brand with a really good warranty, because that'll tell you how much faith they have in their products, I wouldn't put it in my system, right? So go for your name brands, go for the ones with good warranties that are 80 plus, I would say at least 80 plus or 80 plus bronze. You can go, as low as a 500 watt 80 plus unit from EVG. I've used plenty of those. Those are fine. And they have decent warranties attached as well. But don't go for some like off-the-shelf, just super sketchy brand you've never heard of, silver power supply enclosure brand. Because a lot of times, especially when they get older and they start acting up, when they do finally die, they can kill other components, but they don't have the proper surge protection in place to prevent these other components from being killed in the process. So it's unfortunate that it had to happen this way. But I do have faith that that the viewer will be able to get a return authorization. There shouldn't be just a single blinking LED. Both LEDs should either be blinking or not blinking or completely permanently on. So I think that single blinking LED is telling us that there's something very, very wrong with the card. And like I said, if the old power supply killed the card, that would make perfect sense. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is take this outside and give it a proper dusting. I'm not going to deep clean, like I said, but there is quite a bit of surface dust here. We're going to get all that out before he picks up his system. That way he at least has a clean system and he knows what's wrong with it. And I actually finished at 1 p.m. So it took me 2 hours to troubleshoot and to film all of this, which that worked out. So if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to let me know by giving this one a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. You can also check the comment section at some point in the near future. It won't be right away, but at some point I will have a pinned comment down there that will kind of reveal to you guys what ended up happening with this system. Won't know right away again, so if you're watching this video when it first publishes, there'll be some other random comment down there. But once we find out if this viewer can claim warranty on this card, if a warranty does in fact exist, and if Gigabyte follows through with said warranty, I will let you know in a pinned comment. I'll also be sure to send their engineering team an email with this video link asking them specifically what this single blinking LED means. Again, we disconnected both cables and we still got the single blinking LED. Like, both LEDs should be totally on if the cables are disconnected according to their website. But same issue, same single blinking LED, and I think that means the card is dead. So curious to hear what they have to say, and that will also be in a pinned comment up top after, I'm sure, a few days. The engineering team's gonna take a while, I'm sure, to respond. Anything else? You can subscribe, that would be cool. Leave another comment down below. Let me know what you think about this playlist so far, and what other kinds of problems you'd like to see addressed in the future. We're gonna do some specific board work in the future as well. There is a 1060 with a chipped off, I think it's a diode. We're gonna try to solder that with a donor board back together, fix that, and then we'll put it in a PCDC viewer system. So I'll actually be able to upgrade a graphics card in this current graphics card market. I know I can't do it for this viewer, but I have another one that I'm gonna try to fix, and if I can fix it, then that person will get a graphics card upgrade over his, I think he has a 9800 GT in it, so that's a really freaking old card, so a 1060 will go a long way there. But yeah, stay tuned for that. That'll be really cool. A few other fix or flop videos
in the works. Definitely nervous. I'm not sure what I'm going to run into, but I think that's what's fun about this kind of playlist here is you don't know what you're going to get. I sure as heck don't. And I'm sure I'll embarrass myself once or twice at least, and you guys get to see it on video. So subscribe, leave a comment. I'd appreciate all of that input, and stay tuned for the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for trying to fix the system with me.